Welcome to New Friends Cinema,
where we get to know each other by sharing our favorite movies.
From childhood throwbacks to recent comforts, we walk through the stories together.
Keep in mind this podcast contains mad spoilers, and join us
At the New Friends Cinema.
Look at me.
Welcome back to New Friends Cinema.
Look at me. I'm the podcast now. I'm the captain. We're
right here.
Yeah. Okay.
Welcome back to New Friends Cinema.
Welcome back.
I'm Dakota.
And I'm Courtney.
Fucking just gets weirder every time.
Every time. And I love it. It's great.
We've just been chatting and snacking for the last 15 minutes, half hour. And we're both so excited to talk about this movie. And we keep trying to talk about
And
it,
then we
right?
get
And then
like,
we're like, okay. Yeah.
But anyways, we'll start with how are you? How have things been?
Like we haven't been chatting.
Yeah, I know.
I'm great. The sun is out. Sun is shining.
Oh,
you know,
it's great.
Spring's on the way. I feel like it's almost warm enough to dry my clothes outside, which is exciting.
Nice.
Anyway, how are you?
I'm good. You saw me when I came in. I feel like a bit of a energy flurry of just
The cheese and the apples really fucking mellowed you out.
It really did.
Yeah.
Had a little snack.
Yeah, sometimes you don't realize you need a snack until you're having a snack, and then you're like, oh, yeah,
I needed a snack.
I needed that.
Yeah, feeling much more mellow, which is great.
Awesome.
To just ramp back up again, because we're gonna
this
talk about a
really
really
mellow.
scary movie.
It was not bad though.
No.
It wasn't bad.
Oh.
I did watch it at 3 p.m. in this very bright room. So.
Ty and I busted it out at 9 p.m. last night.
He was
when
home.
I texted you. Yes.
Yeah.
Ty's home.
Awesome.
It was great. And, before we even get started with the movie, fun fact about this movie, shall we reveal its name?
Yeah.
We are watching 28 Days Later. Not the Sandra Bullock
28
rehab
days.
movie. Very different vibe.
Yeah.
Love that movie. Love a good Sandy B. But
I love Sandy B.
oh, she is so great.
Yeah.
But this movie is so exciting and not available to stream anywhere. They lost the rights. They lost the sale rights.
Oh,
Danny
what?
Boyle did. Okay, there's this whole background.
So you were looking into it.
I was
when
on
you were trying to
Reddit
find
last
somewhere.
night, and when I texted you,
Mhm.
I have pretty much every streaming service, which is such a privilege. Yes, and I just go through every single one when we have
To
a movie,
find it
right?
somewhere, yeah.
If we don't have it, I rent it.
Usually it's actually most of them we've had to rent.
Yeah,
But that's alright.
but when I went to go rent this movie,
Yeah.
nowhere to be found.
Yeah.
28 weeks later,
Yeah.
yes, but 28 days later, nowhere. And so Ty and I did a deep dive onto Reddit, where it's just the actual facts are that Danny Boyle, the director of this movie, no longer has rights to the movie because it was a certain time amount that he had. And when you lose the rights to the movie, the rights to distribute the movie, right?
Yeah.
So it absolutely just disappears from the internet.
But it's his movie?
Yeah.
Yeah. So who has the rights then?
So Disney originally had rights to this movie.
okay.
And then in 2022,
Yeah.
completely offline. And then recently, what was it? Early 2024, Sony bought it.
This movie.
This movie.
That's crazy.
Isn't that what? And that's how movies are put online.
Right.
Absolutely insane. Had to go, do a huge
So
throwback.
what streaming service is Sony affiliated with then? They need to get this thing on.
I have
on
no
there.
clue.
Yeah.
No clue.
Probably Disney.
Probably
I feel like Disney
yeah.
owns everything.
Back to Disney.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah. And so I texted you, and you
Yeah.
came in clutch, and you were like, let's have a little bit of a throwback, and find it by other means.
Don't you remember that that piracy ad?
Oh, yes.
Early
You don't steal a car.
You wouldn't steal a car. You wouldn't steal a purse.
Why would you steal a movie?
Stealing a movie is no different. Piracy is a crime.
There's this shot of this guy with DVDs in the back of his trunk.
Running
he's,
away.
with his backpack. Yeah, that's so good.
But you know exactly.
Yeah. But anyways, we watched the movie finally,
Yeah.
which is great. And, this movie was a huge cultural shift.
As I was watching it, cause I'd never seen it,
which blows my mind.
I know, and I was watching it and I was like, oh, this movie's a prototype. Like, this movie is 100% like
a
blueprint for sure. Cause there's so much shit that's like I Am Legend, right? Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Right? Immediately, that was the first one I thought of. I was like, oh, this is literally like where I Am Legend came from, right?
Oh, there are so many. So at a certain point in time in like the, I don't know, 2010, I suppose, zombie culture took off. Yeah. Graphic novels, movies, TV shows.
Is that when Walking Dead came out?
Yeah,
people got really into zombie apocalypse and end of the World War Z.
Yeah.
End of the world.
Yeah. Dawn of the Dead.
Prepping.
It was a cultural phenomenon that I totally got sucked into.
Yeah, Courtney was just pointing at herself.
Yeah.
I did not know.
No.
Oh. I don't know, that's not fun for me. I'm like, I would want to be, like, bite me first. Like,
yeah, I'm done.
I would like to be
this is where it's going?
The head zombie. That would be fun. That would be fun for me. Patient Zero.
Yeah.
Or something like that. But, like, I just eat my brains right away.
Done.
I don't want to survive in that world. Why would I want, what is, like, the amount of trauma you're going through just to exist.
Yeah.
Your friends and family are gone.
Yeah.
Your whole way of life is gone. There's nothing. You never get to shower. Like,
yeah, it's survivalist porn. I think it taps into a little bit of a psyche piece for some people where if you're naturally wired for some kind of anxiety, you get a thrill out of like this freedom of just like being on your own and surviving on your own and like having all of the control of the world with the threat of death.
Do you think you would survive?
You know, I flip-flop.
Yeah.
You know, my pre-injury, hell yeah, I could run. Now, with my injury, cannot run as fast or as long as I could. I would be the first to go down now, I believe.
I feel like you would trip and take yourself out.
I think that's not
you'd get like too excited. Yeah, you'd like fall down a couple flights of stairs.
It's happening! It's happening, it's happening, it's happening.
Like before the zombies even got to our town.
Yeah, I choke on like tea or something. No, accurate. But this movie had such a pivotal point in our culture, and I was 13 when this movie came out.
2002.
Yeah, 2002. And it was just such a scary phenomenon. And, you know, it, like you said, it was the blueprint. Like so many different things started rolling out. Yeah. And for me, I don't know if you know this about me actually with movies. Maybe I've told you, but I have a bit of a thing for genres, like very specific genres of movies that if it comes out, you know, I'm like hands down, I gotta watch it.
Okay, sure. Yeah.
So
it's like shark movies for me.
That's on my list.
Anything shark related. I just love, like, Prob and I's deep dive on the backside of Amazon Prime, watching like the 5-headed, 6-headed, mutant, all those kinds of
all the NATOs.
Movies. Yeah,
all of
absolutely
the megalodons.
Love that shit.
And zombie movies just happen to be one of them. So I have seen almost, and I won't say every because that's like I don't know all of them, but like I've seen almost every zombie movie.
So these are zombies.
Well, according to Danny Boyle, who is the director of this movie, also known for Trainspotting, which is also a really intense movie, and I think he did Slumdog Millionaire, but I won't. Don't quote me on that. But he does not consider this movie a zombie movie.
I didn't think. I was like, I don't know if they really are, like, what you would traditionally, like, they have some of the aspects of the new age zombie, which are, like, the running and stuff, because I've seen, like, the original, the black and white, what is that one? Dawn of the Dead, right? Where they're, like, the original zombie is, like, slow, like, just wants to eat brains, that kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And then there's, like, this new version of zombies that are, like, really fast, and really, it's all carnage, and they're not necessarily just like sucking the brains out of your ears or whatever. They're like
in slow motion.
You know what I mean? It's like, and it's like intense,
really
intense, like quick, right?
And you totally hit the nail on the head because this is actually called outbreak horror.
Sure, yeah.
And
like pandemics.
Yeah, like the Contagion movie. That's the only one that I can think of right now. But essentially,
Contagion 2,
Contagion 3, 2020. But really, this is such an interesting take on I guess infected or the undead aspect of this horror genre. And, you know, this is this artsy horror too. Like these are really interesting angles and long shots.
There's some long scenes of,
a lot of silence. Yeah. And when music does come into play, like the soundtrack is banging too. And there's just really good atmosphere, great cinematography, great acting. This movie overall, so good.
It was really, like watching it, I was like, cause I'm pretty easy, you know? Like, there's not a lot of stuff that I really hate when it comes to like movies, but I was watching it and I was like, holy fuck, like this is truly a great movie. And not, I would say film.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Film.
Yeah. I'm pushing the glasses up my nose. I'm saying film. It was like every element of it to me, and watching it for the first time, there were some things where I was like kind of predictable now.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Totally.
But I thought like the way that it was handled and what they were talking about and the kind of the twists and turns and everything was just like, and they fucking cut to your, guess what? I cried. Really?
Yeah, I cried. I'm not surprised. Cause this is
they
intense.
cut to your heart, man. They cut right to the heart.
And cause you haven't seen this, I keep forgetting.
Yeah.
My goodness. But like back to this element of like, this is a cinema. Like this is a film. It won so many awards. Not by any measure of like Academy Awards, but poo-poo on that. Yeah. But like this moved people. Mm-hmm. And it truly did spark like that onslaught of zombie culture, panic, horror, outbreak culture in film and entertainment. Really cool.
I want to hear how it was in your life. Yeah.
Okay, so like I said, I was a fresh teenager when this came out.
That is perfect timing.
Oh, yeah. Yes. And I think my tolerance at even 13, like I was watching Law and Order when I really shouldn't be watching Law and Order as a kid. So like my tolerance for horror was relatively high even by 13. And I don't know what it is about horror, and it might speak to, you know, how some, you know, women or folks really are drawn to true crime because it's
it's like
wanting
a
to
survival
know.
thing, right?
Like wanting to know, wanting to feel like you know what to do in certain situations. I kind of feel like that's part of the reason why I love horror so much, because maybe I just want to know how to deal with it if it comes up. And so I would watch ghost movies, poltergeist movies, and they were just constantly on repeat. And when this movie came out, it shook me. I was terrified of this movie. Like, and yet being terrified, I would rewatch it, and people would come over and be like, hey guys, do you want to watch 28 Days Later? And people were like, no, that movie is scary. And I'm like, okay, cool. I guess we'll watch, I don't know, Mean Girls for like the 10th time in a row.
I mean, yeah.
But I love being scared. And this was one of those moments as a kid where I could honestly predict almost lines word for word for this movie. And even last night while I was watching it, I know what's going to happen. Yeah. But the amount of times that my heart was in my butt was a lot. Yeah. I knew what was coming, but I was still scared.
Yeah. They were extremely successful in making you invested.
Yes.
Yeah.
Totally.
Sure.
Yeah. And I'm so glad that this came up and you got to watch it for the first time.
Awesome. So fucking awesome. Yeah.
And just get to talk to you about it.
And it's another one similar to Sleepy Hollow, where it's like, I didn't watch it. It came out, I was too young when it came out, and then I just never watched it.
Right?
And I've always wanted to watch it, and it's just never happened. And now I also know why, because it's not available anywhere to watch. That's also why, I'm really excited to talk about this and stuff, and
let's do it.
Okay,
so we have a couple things to say before we actually get into the movie.
Yes.
But first, let's just introduce that this is 2002, British post-apocalyptic horror film by Danny Boyle and written by Alex Garland.
Oh, yeah. Didn't he write The Beach?
I do not know.
Is that the guy that wrote The Beach?
With our dear friend Leo?
Yeah, can you Google
let's look at, I don't have my phone. Look at our LAND.
Yeah, he wrote The Beach.
Nice.
I fucking love that movie.
That's a thriller.
Whew.
That's a roller coaster from like moment one. This movie has a small but mighty cast. We have Cillian Murphy.
Can I talk about Cillian Murphy for a second?
You can totally talk about Cillian Murphy for a second.
First of all, he's really having a moment right now, and even though I don't know him, I'm proud of him.
Yeah.
Because he is like been in the game for so long.
Yeah.
For so long. The first thing I remember like seeing him in was a movie called Red Eye. Did you ever see that? With him and I think Rachel McAdams. Yeah. And he was the bad guy in that movie. And his eyes are so blue. And I would have been probably 14.
Yeah.
Or so when I saw that movie. And I had such a big crush on him.
Well, yeah.
And he was like the bad guy and stuff. And I just like the face, like the cheeks and
Irish.
Everything. And, I just completely lost my train of thought.
You were like,
I literally just gazed out. But he was one of my first crushes, for sure. Like, yeah.
Broody, handsome, cheekbones that could cut a slice of cheese. And he's just really talented too.
Yeah. That's all I wanted to say.
But yeah, like you said, he's totally having this moment with Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
And Peaky Blinders is also a huge hit.
People have like tattoos of that.
Oh my goodness.
What's his name? Tony Shelby or something like that?
Tom Shelby.
People have like tattoos of that.
Wow.
It's just crazy.
Yeah, people love him.
Anyway.
And this was, I would definitely wager he's in stuff before.
For
28
sure.
Days Later.
Oh, for sure.
But I think this is one of the movies that really catapulted him, I guess, into
He's fucking incredible in this movie.
Oh, so good. Okay. So not only do we have Cillian Murphy as the lead, Naomi Harris, Christopher Eccleston, who was, in my mind, the Doctor. He's the 9th Doctor for Doctor Who.
Who's Christopher Eccleston?
Oh,
what, you have to tell me who the characters are.
Later.
Okay, but also Mad-Eye Moody's in this movie.
Yes.
Frank.
So we have Megan Burns and Brendan Gleeson. Who plays Frank.
He's so good.
Oh, don't even get me started on Frank. Okay. This was a cultural moment of horror, like I said. It was released in 2002 with critical acclaim and financial success, grossing more than $82.7 million worldwide on a modest budget of $8 million. So that's a
good
pretty good deal.
In 2002?
Yeah.
Is that 2002 money?
Probably.
Woo!
Reviewers praised Boyle's direction, cast performances, Garland's screenplay, the atmosphere, the soundtrack. Like, overall, this is a really well-rounded, good movie. And it was reinvigorating the zombie genre. Say that 10 times fast.
Mm-hmm.
The film was obviously followed up by that, 28 weeks later.
Have you seen that?
Yeah, and I think it's good.
Does it have the same cast?
No. No. It's not nearly as indie. They definitely picked up on it and, turned it into a bit of a blockbuster kind of thing. But still a great horror. It's good.
Yeah.
It follows the two kids around. And yeah, there was a huge surge in popularity again in 2020 when, obviously the world was locked down and, people were binge watching Outbreak horror, which is just wild.
What were you doing? What were you binging?
During the pandemic?
Yeah.
I was playing a lot of video games.
Mm-hmm.
I was still working.
Yeah, pandemic. That was before I got into video games. I didn't get into video games until 2021 actually. Mm-hmm. But, during COVID, what was I binging? Alcohol.
Yeah, so that's the kind of lead up to the movie that we would like to share with you. And we would just like to note that there is a pretty significant, in my opinion, trigger warning related to...
This is a trigger warning, yes.
Yes, trigger warning for SA and some pretty heavy violence talk, right?
We're not going to be going into super detail, but this is a violent movie, absolutely. And there are, SA themes and stuff, and we will...
Note it
before we get into it. It's later on. It's going to be later in the episode, but totally. Just so that you're aware.
Yeah, and heads up. Okay, let's dive in. The movie opens with basically the end of the world.
Oh my gosh.
There's footage of people rioting, police beating, the mass is back, fires in the streets, people screaming and running, roadblocks, just death and destruction.
Tires.
Totally. And at first we're thinking, oh, is this newscasting? Is this the 20 days later?
Yeah.
No, because the camera zooms out and we see these, these images being, shown on these tiny ass screens, these little TVs being force watched into this, locked up chimpanzee in a lab.
Yeah, and it has those little stickers on it. It's monitoring its brain activity.
This is a science experiment. And we're witnessing, I guess, horrific animal torture. And in the midst of this, we see these scenes of animal activists breaking into the building that the lab is in. Mm-hmm. And they're sneaking through the hallways. They're dressed in full, spy squat gear. They're on a mission. Mm-hmm. Black Ops gear. And they manage to break into the lab that the chimps are in. And they begin to just start to take footage with their own cameras and those pictures.
Blurry fucking pictures.
Oh, God.
Yeah, they're taking pictures. There's some are in plastic cages. Yeah. Some have been obviously autopsied. They're deceased, and there's bits and pieces here and there, and then alive ones and stuff.
Oof.
Yeah, go on.
You overhear the activists being oh my God, what have they done to you? We're gonna get you out. Let me save you. And they kind of go up to this chimp who is locked up in this Clockwork Orange style torture device.
It totally
right?
is, yeah.
And they're what the fuck is happening here right now? Because this is, like, finding, animal testing lab is horrific in its own way, but then stumbling upon this horror scene is very scary, just to watch him hooked up like that. Yeah,
because it's, like, beyond, too. It's like, what are you even trying to achieve here? Right?
Oh, they'll find out.
Well, yeah. But...
at this point, Ty like turns to me, he's like, "Is that chimp wearing a wig, Courtney?" And I was like, "Fuck off."
That's hilarious.
I know.
I told you Prob called you a wig wizard the other day, right?
Which is so good. I am gonna get a tattoo of that.
That's amazing.
And it's like a little slight jab to my expertise when it comes to clocking these things, but it doesn't affect my ego in any way. But next we see the scientist, like, frozen in the background. But he catches the activists kind of in the act as they're not only taking these photos, but they're gonna, like, release the chimps. And he, like, frantically yells at them, "Don't! The chimps are infected! Don't release them!" And the activists are, like, demanding. They're like, "What did you do?" Yeah. And what are they infected with? And he's like, "Rage." And, like, in order for us to understand how to cure it, we must understand all of it.
But why did you create it then?
I don't know.
Also, normal chimps are angry as hell.
Yeah.
Like, just regular chimps will rip your face off. So
these chimps will skin you head to toe and then wear your body suit as an outfit. So the activists obviously start to freak out. They're like, "What do you mean rage? Like, what is going on?" And the scientist, like, runs to go call security, and the activists, like, catch him and, like, pin him down.
Everybody's wrong.
That's a good way of putting it. And he's like, "Please, please, please, don't release them." And of course, the one activist, releases the chimp.
And immediately gets fucking brained by this thing.
Oh, he bolts out of that cage, and he goes fucking feral on her. And within seconds, she is now what we would consider Dakota's prized position. Patient zero. Yeah. But, everything's fine because she got her vaccines and
they haven't developed a cure.
They haven't developed a cure. No, and the rest is history. The activist ends up dying and quickly flipping into rage mode herself. Mm-hmm. And I get into this a little bit later on, but the way that the movie and the directors and the actors portray this rage-fueled, like, feral, I don't know how to, like, chaos is really scary. Like, the sounds they make, the twisting and the spasms of the muscles as they come at you, it's scary.
Yeah.
Really unpredictable, right? Mm-hmm. Ugh. Thus begins the spread of the rage virus. So, what I really like about this movie too is that, like, the scene kind of cuts and the screen goes black and it's like 28 days later, the title of the movie, but it's also, like, prompting you for this is how it went down.
Right.
So, we kind of, like, do a bit of this, like, zoom to this other atmosphere of flashing into a stark hospital room where we see, like, things scattered on the floor.
It's abandoned, for sure. And abandoned, like, quickly, right?
Yeah.
Chaotically. Yeah.
And we see our lead actor, Cillian Murphy, naked as the day he was born.
Buck.
Just kind of, like, propped up in the bed, kind of obviously still hooked up because people just left him. Mm-hmm. And we assume at this point that he was obviously kind of in a coma.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think Ty and I agree that the scariest part and the most gross part of this entire movie was him removing the IVs from his veins. Like,
oh really?
Oh god, that's my phobia.
The scariest part.
That's my phobia. Like, I have to lie down every time I get a needle. So he's, like, learning, like, his muscles are obviously atrophied. He's kind of
He's dehydrated.
Oh, he's not doing well. Mm-hmm. And he kind of, like, stumbles and tries to, like, get out of the room and can't, finds a key, manages to get out, and finds some scrubs, to clothe himself. His homeboy is just walking around naked. He is making his way through the hospital, and clearly also the hospital is trashed. There's stuff everywhere, and he is just going, hello? But how scary would this be? You wake up from a coma, not knowing you were in a coma, mm-hmm. and just, like, no one's around.
Yeah, that's scary.
Ugh.
And it's, like, a really big city, too. There's something about that, like, that silence is, like, really intense. He like goes to a bank of payphones and he's like trying all the lines. This firmly sets us in 2002.
Yes.
My sister and I used to love a bank of payphones. Did you used to do this? We would go through every phone and check if there was change.
And you would find a quarter or two.
Yeah, well, not usually quarters because they would take quarters, but like dimes.
Dimes and nickels and stuff.
Which, I mean, you could get like a handful of candy.
Hell yeah.
Right?
Hell yeah.
You found a couple dimes? Yeah.
Those places were a fucking gold mine for kids.
Okay, that just
also, really gnarly, just being like, touching all these like, public things.
And then immediately going and getting 5-cent candies and eating
shoving
it in your
mouth.
Yeah.
So
hilarious.
We see our Cillian, our homeboy, he finds like an exploded vending machine with like Pepsi cans all over the
amazing ad placement.
Right?
I feel like this is where most of the budget for the movie came from. Right?
Pepsi's like, okay, just don't make us the bad guys.
And he fucking chugs that thing.
He is starving because his feeding tube did not get filled for a few weeks, right? So he is probably, like you said, dehydrated, starving, and he's just pounding that Pepsi. And he's like,
it looked really good.
Well, I was like, oh god. The burn in my nose as I'm watching him chug this Pepsi.
Yeah, I guess. It was warm though, I feel like maybe.
Oh.
It wouldn't be
even worse?
Oh.
I think it might be worse.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on.
So he makes his way outside, and like, I think at this point, confusion and shock is like settling in. This is a huge what the fuck is happening moment. And to be fair, like, am I going insane? Like, am I dead? What is going on?
This is one of those long scenes we were talking about where it's completely, like, it's pretty much silent and you're just seeing him, like, walking through different parts of the city. We're in London, right?
Yeah.
And how everything's, like, shut down and it's just him and seeing kind of, like, the aftermath.
Yeah.
Like, there's lots of, like, flyers and lots of things are, like, destroyed and stuff.
Garbage. Mm-hmm. And, like, money is, like, scattered all over the ground, and he starts to, like, pick it up, thinking, whoa, wow, like, I'm gonna use this. Yeah. And not really knowing that, like, money doesn't really fucking matter anymore, given the circumstances. And the music is actually slowly building and getting louder and louder until we get to that scene where there's, like, the billboards with all of the missing people. Mm-hmm. And it's like, what happened here? There's so many people either missing or dead, and there are all these, like, I love you, I hope you'll have peace messages, and he's just, I think it's really just sinking in, like, something terrible, awful has happened. Mm-hmm. A holy fuck moment. And he goes to a church. I'm like,
possibly the creepiest place that he could go.
But, like, this is definitely maybe biblical shit that's gone down, so kind of, for some people being like, I'm gonna go maybe try and find some answers or salvation here.
Historically, sanctuary, right?
Sanctuary, that's the word I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
Sanctuary! And the way that Danny Boyle, like, really builds this particular scene up, he's, like, going through this church. The end is fucking nigh.
The end is extremely
fucking nigh. Yes.
Love that.
Oh, and again, that silence.
Mm-hmm. And just his footsteps.
Yeah.
And it's dark.
He makes his way into the main area of that church, and there are just layers of bodies. Mm-hmm. Just you cannot see the floor. Mm-hmm. And he's gobsmacked, obviously, because this is a shocking thing to see. And my dear friend goes, hello? And a couple of people, like,
whip their heads around
frantically.
And they're like mouth wide open, like, oh.
Yeah. And he's like, oh, what the hell? Mm-hmm. And then you hear them, like, scurrying.
Yeah.
And then the priest, father, storms in, like, on the same level that he's on in terms of the church, like the mezzanine.
He looks wasted, to be honest. Yeah. At first, he's kind of like stumbling and, like, hunched over. And he's like, Father, are you okay?
Father is not okay. And he's tripping zombie balls at this point.
I did laugh out loud when he did that. I was like,
dude,
what do you think? His the priest's, like, eyes, now you can see completely red. Oh. He's, like, emaciated and, like,
oozing blood,
like, coming at him, and he's like, Father, are you okay?
And he lunges at Cillian, and Cillian, like, has his Pepsis in a plastic bag and just, like, whacks him over the head, and he's like, I shouldn't have done that. He's like, no, you should have done more.
Good Catholic boy.
Oh yeah, through and through. So, like, yeah, so scary, so fast, and then all of a sudden, like, he runs out of the church and dozens are like following
He's being
him.
chased now. He's being chased. And either the sun has set or it is setting.
Oh, which is dangerous.
So before, right, it was like he must have woke up morning sometime. He's walking for a long time. It's all daylight. Now he's coming out of this church and it's like night is setting on and now all these people are like coming out after him, right? Like these are the first people he's seen.
And they are frantically chasing him. And it's terrifying. So he bolts and out of nowhere, Molotov cocktails are just soaring in and throwing at, so for the record, I am going to go back and forth between zombies and infected. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
whatever. And so Molotov cocktails hit a couple of the zombies and we see a few masked heroes that come in and like save Cillian.
But he's scared too. Like he's not trusting them either necessarily. Like he's like, what the fuck is going on? Like at first when they come, he's kind of like tries to like run from them too, right? Cause he's like, what? And then they're speaking to him and he's like, okay, and like kind of goes with them and is like,
totally.
And he's like talking so much and they're like,
shut the fuck up and move.
Yeah. He's like, what's happening?
What's happening? And fair enough, my dude.
100%.
And as they like manage to run away, they just casually blow up a gas station.
And they're loving it. They're like
hooting. Cillian's still like, what's going on? And they're like, follow us. And they run safely back to what appears to be like a safe house in a newspaper kiosk.
In like a subway station, yeah.
And it's got like that pull down gate or cage and there's like treats and food and it just seems like the safest place that he could probably be in at this point. So he kind of like grounds himself a little bit, still obviously in shock, but now that they're in safety, our heroes unmask themselves to reveal a woman named Selena, played by Naomi Harris, and a man named Mark, played by Noah Huntley. And they immediately like start to question about like, what are you doing out there? And Cillian reveals that his name is Jim. So I now will be calling Jim. And that he is a bike courier. And the last thing he remembers was him, at work on his bike delivering a package. And then like either a truck or a van, I just put vehicle, I can't remember.
Yeah,
he was
got
struck
hit by a car.
Yeah. And he must have fallen into a coma.
Because we also didn't mention, but we saw when he woke up that he had, his hair's kind of long, but part of his head had been shaved and there was stitches on part of his head. So he'd had a pretty serious head trauma.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And at this point we get to like kind of get caught up with Jim. And I have a note here that Jim and I have a little bit of a thing in common because when the pandemic happened, I told you that I had a pretty serious injury and there were complications with the injury that I ended up being horizontal for like a few months. And so I couldn't walk. And so Ty would go out and do the groceries and all of the things. And he would have to come back and tell me about the download. That he's like, yeah, no. And I'm like, well, what do you mean that? And what do you mean you have to buy everything you touch at the grocery store? Like, this is so weird because I didn't experience any of it.
Yeah. That's crazy.
And so Jim is shook by this news because it's like all of what he's seen is slowly starting to like click into place and he really missed out on the outbreak essentially. And they go on to explain how the virus exploded basically overnight.
Yeah, and how it spreads through blood and saliva and kind of what had happened initially. And yeah, we're kind of hearing like tidbits of both of their stories.
Totally.
Selena and
Mark.
Yeah.
And they'd share that at first they were getting news updates on the TV about, the happenings in the UK, and then things started to like, maybe there was some outbreak in France or something like that. Maybe it's gone global, but then the news got cut off entirely after
he was saying that like it was like, it started as riots, but it was different because it was like in the little towns and stuff.
Yeah,
and then
village.
It was outside the door.
Yeah.
And then it was like everywhere, and then they're like, the last broadcast said that it was in Paris and New York. And then it shut down. So they didn't hear anything after that.
Totally. The two argue now because Jim really wants to go find his family.
Yeah, and they're saying your family's fucking dead.
Yeah.
Like nobody has family anymore.
Right.
And he's like, I'm going.
Yeah, and to be fair, like I totally get that perspective of just like wanting to see it for yourself.
Also to just get some sense of like grounding here.
Yeah, I need to be with people I know. But it's not like he doesn't believe it, but he really needs to see it to believe it. And the two of them are like, okay, fine, we'll go, but we cannot, because there are two rules of the zombie apocalypse right now. A, you don't go anywhere alone, and B, you only travel during the daylight. And so the next we see the group here, traveling at dawn. they make their way out and they go through the city to find Jim's family. I'm assuming just like in the suburbs outside of the city.
Yeah, he said that they could walk there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel like it's just like a town just outside of the city.
And so when they find his family home, Jim eventually finds his parents deceased in bed. Mm-hmm. And there's evidence on the bedside table to indicate that they chose to, you know, kill themselves instead of enduring probably a horrific death and, you know, chose to die peacefully better than the alternative.
Yeah. And there's a photo of Jim when he was little in their hands, and then there's a note written on the back because obviously they knew he was in hospital.
Yeah.
Right.
So the note reads, Jim, with endless love, we left you sleeping. Now we're sleeping with you. ... Don't wake up.
Yeah, that's sad.
Shivers. Like,
and he's having like a moment, like with
his
this.
Whole world is like crashing down on top of like losing everything. And so,
but at least he gets to get a change of clothes.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. Get out of those scrubs.
Get out of the scrubs. And so the three of them decide to stay the night in the house because, you know, night's approaching and, you know, zombie apocalypse rules. And, you know, Mark kind of shares stories about how everything went down for him and just the story of him like climbing over people to get out of the airport. Cause you know the airport would be a fucking madhouse at a time like this. And eventually the two of them fall asleep and Jim kind of like by candlelight is walking through his family home unbeknownst to the other rules of apparently the zombie apocalypse.
The minute he lit that fucking candle, I knew this is a beacon, right? Like you
come get me.
I feel for Jim.
He has no idea what's going on.
He doesn't. But anyone, I just feel like landing in this situation and starting to understand how intense it is.
Yeah.
Something you might understand is like not to make noise or produce light in the night.
Which leads me to believe like he is in shock mode. Like
he's still trying to
reconcile.
Like grasp. Yeah. Well, and then, yeah, cause he's obviously trying to do like some sort of, like not a funeral, but you know, some sort of service, like some sort of thing for his parents, right?
So he busts out some family videos to kind of do exactly what you're saying.
But he's like communicating with the videos. He's kind of like tripping out, right?
He's, in my opinion, you know, he's super dehydrated, super hungry, super in shock. He's hallucinating himself being in these home movies at this point. And he's like talking out loud and there's like the video projector light and this peaceful morning moment is starkly interrupted by an infected just like busting through the window because, like Dakota said, a giant beacon of like, come eat me thing
flew through the window.
And it's so silent. And then all of a sudden, bam, the glass breaks and your heart is just like, watching this happen.
I was shaking my head.
You're like, jam. But Selena and Mark like bust out of sleep and manage to take them out. And Selena begins like shouting and questioning Jim after the zombies go down. Did you get bit? And Jim's like, I'm fine. I didn't get bit.
And did the blood go in your mouth?
Yes. Mark got bit. And when I tell you the level in which Selena did not pause,
this shocked me.
This is a violent talk moment. Trigger warning.
Shocked me. I did not see Selena going at Mark like coming. That. I did not see that coming. I thought Mark was like a main character. And the way that she just fucking took him out really
machete style
shows you're like, holy fuck, this bitch, like she's
seen and been through some wild stuff to just immediately turn off and brutally kill him. Selena goes on to talking about how the change is quick. I'll do it to you too. And don't think for 1 second that like I won't kill you. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And she's like, her own survival is like number one and that the change takes, you have 10 to 20 seconds from them being like infected to them turning, and it's a blink of an eye, and if you don't,
you can't hesitate.
No.
Yeah. And at this point, Ty looks at me, he's like, this is a lot more of a horror movie than I remembered. Because we do get to like really glimpse the violence, I think, in which the non-infected have to do in order to survive. Like, the infected are violent and terrifying, but the people-on-people violence is pretty wild for survival's sake.
And I feel like, too, there was that level of, we're getting Mark's story, and you're starting to feel safe around him. You're starting to feel like, okay, what is the rest of this story? And
where is this
to
going?
Just be, like, to take something, to just eliminate something like that, like right off the bat,
like in a blink of an eye,
is like driving home, like so much, like the severity of the situation. I don't know. I just thought
100%. Yeah. And I have a note here. It's like we really start to see how hardened Selena is. Mm-hmm. Like she's been through some shit. She has to cut herself off immediately in order to do what needs to be done for survival. And that's all she cares about is surviving. And it's just like a really interesting, I guess, not caricature, what's the word? Like character mold of like this is the only thing she cares about. Do not mess with that.
And she mentions that a few times. Yeah.
And so they're walking the next morning and she's explaining this. And as they argue about like humanity, we see like in the distance, we see some flashing lights on a balcony in an apartment lights. Yeah. Very bright flashing Christmas lights. And they choose to investigate. Mm-hmm. And so I make a note here. I was like, you know what doesn't work in the zombie apocalypse? Elevators. Mm-hmm. They won't work. Mm-hmm. And so they have to make their way up to that, whatever floor it was. It looked like maybe the 10th or 13th floor.
Well, it wouldn't have been the 13th floor.
No, they skipped that one.
Yeah.
Right. Well, who knew? Or maybe in this world there is a 13th floor.
That's why it happened.
Yeah.
Also, when they're getting through this barricade of like shopping carts, Selena's being so fucking loud getting through there. I was just like, oh my god.
And she yells, quiet.
Yeah, she's
like, girl, look in the mirror. Like, what? So they have to make their way up these like flights of stairs, and that would kill me on a regular day. Like, and Jim is post-coma, only running on Pepsi, and not doing good.
Did I say this already, that their tummies must fucking hurt so bad?
Sugar?
Just sugar.
Oh. It would be a nightmare.
Yeah.
And obviously, like, he's lagging behind Selena a bit on their way up. And suddenly, they hear the from like, down the corridor.
Yeah.
Like, down the staircase. Because someone was being a little loud.
Crazy loud.
And they bolt. Mm-hmm. But poor Jim, he's like, Selena! Don't leave me!
Yeah, she's not fucking waiting.
She told him.
Yeah.
She was very forward.
And he's like screaming, like, don't leave me.
Don't leave me. Yeah. And it's so intense, and they're running and running and running. And at this point, you're like, we just lost Mark. Are we gonna lose Jim too?
When you were a little kid and you were like in the basement and then you turned off the lights and you had to run up the stairs as fast as you could.
That's the scene. That is exactly what's happening.
This is like what I was imagining in my head when I was a little kid chasing me. Actually, I would imagine it was like a mouse chasing me.
Really? Yeah. No, I imagined these guys. Because like I said, I watched a lot of shit too early. So out of nowhere, in the stairwell, a man in full-on SWAT gear saves them. And he's like, go, run behind me. And they run past towards his apartment door where he holds off the infected. And so Selena and Jim like make their way to the door and start like banging on it. Open up, open up, and open up. And the young girl behind the door is like, not without my dad. Where's dad? Where's dad? And she will not let them in until dad gives her the clear, which is, fair. Yeah. They might have seen some horrific people and people crime before, and they do not want to let anybody into their house. But they eventually get into the apartment because dad gives the clear, and we're introduced to Frank and Hannah.
I love Frank so much, and I'm going to talk about Frank.
Right now?
No, but
later.
I will.
Yeah. Frank is a gem, and this father-daughter duo...
He's just trying so hard.
He's doing the best he can with what they fucking got.
To protect her.
Yep.
And to give her some semblance of still normalcy.
Yeah.
So when they come into the apartment and Frank's behind them, Frank's just fucking clubbed like 3 zombies to death.
Yeah.
He comes in and he's like, this is so nice. It's so nice to have visitors. And
company.
What was the daughter's name again?
Hannah.
And to Hannah, he's like, what do we have first to celebrate, right? And she's like, Mom's creme de menthe or whatever. And he's like, let's get it. And then he's like digging around and she tells him where the good cups are and whatever. And you can just really see that he's just trying so hard to like keep her comforted in some way and protected. Ugh. And just right off the bat, you're just like, this is
gonna hurt later.
No, don't say that.
Yeah.
But this is someone that I feel safe around.
Immediately.
I'm like, yeah.
Not only did he save them, but also like, this is a kind, loving duo here. Like, they feel safe. But also, why is there Christmas music playing? Like, I don't understand that.
Calm her down. Like, it's to keep it...
Do you think?
I think so. I think that's like gotta be like therapeutic in some way.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point, because I was like, why music? Because that might alert them. But I think they've taken the precautions to protect their place. But, it made it creepier, if I'm being honest.
No, and see, it was the opposite for me.
Really?
To me, it immediately made sense, yeah.
Oh, wild. So Jim gets a chance to shave with a terribly dull razor, which is...
Why would he even bother?
I know. We needed to see the cheekbones. I think it was in his contract. He could not be bearded. We have to see those cheekbones.
Give me that Cillian. Take it off. Take it all off.
Take it off. So we see Jim like freshly clean and shaven, and he's looking good. He like cut his hair and everything.
When he comes into the room with Selena, did you notice the fish tank in the corner?
Yes, with the water, like...
The water is like 2 inches tall,
above.
And there's fish like in there just like struggling. Also, everybody's struggling for survival.
But in true like Frank fashion, he's not going to kill his goldfish. He wants to keep it alive, keep it alive for Hannah maybe, but like they're going to use as much as they can, but keep some sense of normalcy. Like he's a kind, considerate man.
But it also is showing that like what they have there is running thin, like it's coming to an end, right?
Totally. And so Jim and Selena are tucked away in like the spare bedroom, and they whisper like hushed things of like discussing the situation that they're in, discussing the whole Frank and Hannah survival situation. And again, we really get to have this, we get to witness and bear witness to Selena's hardened self. We will leave them behind. They will slow us down. And Jim's like optimistic perspective on hope. And we just see this really interesting contrast between the two of them. How obviously like Jim's naive because he hasn't lived through it. Selena's obviously hardened because she had to live through it. And they're like the two sides of humanity kind of like bickering over what to do best for survival. Do we bring each other close, or do we go at it alone? The next morning, Frank shows Jim his water collection system on the roof. He shares that it hasn't rained in 10 days, and fucking England of all places, which was such a good gag. And they'll eventually have to leave, right? Their supplies are running thin. And so we then see Frank like busts out a wind-up radio to show how he checks for radio broadcasts for other potential survivors, and anything to give like some kind of clue or hope or connection to the outside world. And then we see while he's doing it, they find a message being broadcast.
See, I thought that he had already heard this message and he was showing
probably
Jim.
So this military broadcast advertises that there's like a place of survival or salvation and refuge and an answer to the infection. And the group discusses whether or not to go. A, it could be a trap. B, it could be a lie. The soldiers could all be dead since it's a recording. And they decide to go, like risking it for the biscuit at this point, because what else could they do? Like, what are your options? You could stay.
There are none. Yeah.
There are none. So now we cue to what I would consider the part of a horror movie where there's obviously still the horror going on, but we get levity.
Yeah.
We get
this road trip.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
It's cute.
It's so cute. So we have this adorable scene of them all kind of like piling into this cab. Frank cracks a joke about, the fares, like, I charge extra or something like that. And he's so, again, like you said, he's trying to create some sense of normalcy for Hannah and make her laugh and make her smile. And he's such a good dad. And so we have these scenes of watching them drive, and eventually they roll up to a dark tunnel. And Jim's like, no, we are not going in there. That is a no-go zone. And Frank's like, nah, it'll be fine. And so they proceed through the spooky tunnel, and they get obviously to like a dead end of cars. Like cars are piled up and there's no way to get through. But Frank just like pedal to the metals it and takes this cab over top of this like wreckage of cars.
And when you say cab, we're talking about like this is a small like England car.
Yeah,
right.
There's like no way.
It's not a truck. It's not an SUV.
No,
it's like almost like a Mr. Bean car.
It's
just like a little car.
Yeah,
yeah.
And rightfully and logically so, they pop a tire. And this is when the levity like takes a pause because they have to change the tire. And in the dark, Hannah gets under the cab for some reason.
Why did she have to get under there? That's what
know.
I don't understand. They didn't have a jack?
I think they did.
Is she holding it up from the underneath? What?
She's been lifting for 28 days straight.
If you know how to change a tire, there is no reason why that little girl had to get under the car.
I know. I think it was like something like they had to like get the winch or like the jack in a certain way and she had to get under. I don't know. But
deep
it was
in the bowels of the car.
Right?
Okay.
So they start to get the tools out and the spare, but then like a wave of rats busts through and like crawl over Hannah while she's like under the car.
That's some fear factor shit.
Scary. And then Selena yells, "They're running away from the infected."
Even the rats are scared.
Yeah, because I would imagine, like, they could get infected too, but like also just like they've been ripped apart probably. Ugh.
Yeah, they're like a little infected snack pack.
Little snack pack.
Yeah.
A pudding cup.
Yeah.
Yeah. But this scene, like I said, I have always, I know what's going on, but this scene makes my heart.
It's that chase, right? It's that like almost don't make it kind of
almost
thing.
They are so fucking close. So they managed to like get the tire fixed and whatnot, like cutting it to like this was
close. Also a scene where I was like, what's happening? Like I had a really hard time like tracking what was going on.
There's so much yelling going on,
and it's dark too,
dark.
Right? Like that is one thing with, especially I think with like older horror movies where it's like it's just so dark and you're like, what the fuck is happening?
8 million budget, Dakota. They did not have enough.
It's okay. Hey, it's alright.
No hate. So they make it out by the skin of their teeth, and they roll up to a grocery store. And
I love this part.
It's so, again, they know how to make us kind of put our guard down and get attached to these fucking characters, because they find this unlooted grocery store. And we're introduced to the best element of this movie. It's so freaking happy. It's a part where we get, like I said, attached, and we kind of let our guard down, and we know that something terrible is going to happen. We're just kind of like, is it going to happen in this scene or like later, or when is this going to happen?
Yeah.
But
they even find some apples that aren't rotten.
Gotta love them. GMOs, right?
Yeah.
Well, because it's only 28 days, right?
Like, apples last a really long time.
Especially when they've got some, stuff going on in them.
Well, extra.
A little extra something.
Well, something extra.
Well, something. Organic what? They pick out food that's not chocolate, because Selena's been living in a freaking newspaper kiosk for the last week or so. Yeah. They pick up a nice scotch, or 3, but Frank's just like, I'll take another.
And like canned fruit and stuff like that, right?
They're chatting, they're laughing, and they're
like making jokes too about like the shopping kind of element. Yeah.
And
Frank just leaves his credit card there. Yeah.
But there's like this renewed sense of hope because they have food, and they get back into their car and they drive away.
And the car, like I guess they call it the boot, right?
The boot
is so full that it's like not closed all the way.
Yeah. It's super sweet. But as, road trips go, you gotta fill up the tank of gas. And so they find this old tanker truck kind of pulled over on the side of the highway, and they go to siphon as much as they can from it. And I don't know if I could do this. Like, siphoning the gas and like having to spit it out.
Oh, you'd do it if you had to.
Maybe if I had to, but I would make someone else do it first.
Get a little high, I think. A little extra.
A little huffy hoo. And as they do that, Jim goes to explore the nearby gas station.
Well, first of all, he explicitly doesn't listen to fucking Selena.
No.
He was like, stay close. We have to do this now. It'll be quick. Stay close.
Yeah. And he walks off. And kind of mocks her a little bit. He's like, fucking stay close, whatever. And he goes inside, rag underneath his nose. And side note, I feel like I say this in every one of our episodes of the podcast, where I say something along the lines of like, you can smell the scene. But you can definitely smell the scene, because he is like gagging at the level of.
Is he?
Well, he's got the rag underneath his face. He's like, because there's so many, like, there's dead bodies in the restaurant, right?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Did you forget this
I
part?
Interpreted that entirely different. No, I didn't.
How did you interpret it?
Okay, because when he first met Selena and Mark, their mouths were covered when they were fighting the Sullied or whatever.
They had goggles too.
Yeah, because if the blood or spit gets in your holes. So this is something, when he goes off on his own, I literally was like, I felt it as he was trying to find one to kill.
Oh.
Because he hasn't killed anybody yet. And it gave me, I was like, why would you even go looking in here? And then when he's covering his mouth, I thought he's like expecting to fight one. And he does. And
he does. Yeah.
So that was that's how I saw that.
I like that interpretation.
Was like, he's like, oh, here's a good chance for me to maybe like get some practice in, which is kind of fucked up, but maybe I'm wrong. Like,
I like that, because honestly that tracks, because like he goes in.
Because why the fuck would he go in there?
Right.
And they just got groceries. There's no reason for him to go in there.
Exactly.
They're not trying to stick around there.
Damn.
Yeah.
way to pick that up.
Well,
it's funny because I've seen this movie so many times and I have it in my head like this is the way it is, and then you've seen it for the first time. I love that interpretation because when he does say hello again, like come on,
again,
did you learn anything?
Why is he saying hello?
Why is he saying hello?
Yeah.
This creepy little zombie kid kind of comes out of nowhere and he beats the shit out of him with a baseball bat. Yeah. But as he's leaving, he's like wiping it off. He's unfazed. Yeah. So I change of heart. That is exactly the scene.
I feel like it's like he's like, I need to like toughen up.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Because this does come back later on.
What was I going to say? Also, this scene was so dark that I didn't see any dead bodies. I didn't notice any bodies either. So there's that element of it too that I didn't see anything that would be stinking. I don't know.
So, okay, I like that look. I like that take because then he like kind of walks out of this like gas station restaurant, kind of wiping off his bat, like unfazed. And Selena's like, "Did you find anything?" He's like, "No." Totally. Okay. But they manage to drive away and they find these old castle ruins. Love the UK for that. And then we have these, another one of those beautiful horror movie moments where it's like, this happy moment will ruin your heart later. You're gonna love, because they're having fun. They're chatting about eating vitamin C.
Relaxing, right? Oh. They're having their first good meal in who knows how long.
A picnic.
Frank spots some horses and he's just like really like connecting with the nature. It's so sweet.
Yeah, they're fine without us. Stuff like that. And later on that night, before it goes, the sun goes down, Jim and Selena are having a walk and they discuss the reality that they're in. There's like no new movies, no new books. We have these new friends, we have each other, and we start to kind of see a softer Selena. Yeah, she's thawing out a bit. It's like she's almost hopeful.
She's saying that before they had Hannah and Frank, there was nothing beyond surviving. But seeing how they have each other.
Oh, yeah. How could you not melt?
It makes her realize that there is more than just surviving.
Totally.
And that's like, yeah.
It's really nice because you also see them have a little bit of this bond now. They're falling in love in a hopeless place. So in the evening, still at the castle ruins, they're trying to rest, but struggling, obviously. They're not in a kiosk. They're not in a home. They're just out in the open. And Selena is like out like a light. She's sleeping like a baby. But it turns out she is a trained chemist.
Like a drugged baby.
Yeah. Or pharmacist. And she's got a massive Ziploc bag of drugs. And she like whips out some Valium and, they convince Frank to let Hannah have like half a Valium to sleep.
So this is another thing I want to say about how much I love Frank is that like he's still enforcing rules on Hannah.
Yeah, protecting her.
It's not just the Wild West, even though it is. He's like still protecting her, still like, no, you're just a kid. You can't have a Valium. Yeah. They kind of talk him to let her have half.
Yeah.
I think that's what they gave me when I got my wisdom teeth out.
Cause you're like loosey-goosey, right?
I sent my grandpa a selfie when I was in the chair about to get it out. Just so fucking stoned.
Yeah, this is so good.
Yeah. With the big goggles on and yeah.
Oh, yeah. So they each fall asleep a little bit. But while they rest, Jim has a horrible nightmare of him waking up all alone again. And genuinely that nightmare is so scary because it's so close to reality. He just lived it, right? And so he's running around in the castle ruins during the daytime. Hello, where'd you all go? Trying to find his friends. And just screaming again. Just love his apocalyptic strategy here. But then we see him kind of like tossing and turning and Frank comes over and comforts him like, shh, you're having a nightmare. You're okay. And then Jim says, thanks, Dad.
And I feel like it hits Frank too.
He like, smiles.
He's like,
my heart is breaking is what I have written down. Because it's just
he
so
is
sweet.
Dad.
He is Dad. Like that is the dad mold. Like comes over and like gives him like a little pat on the shoulder. Like it's okay. And then so we cue to the next morning where Jim wakes up all alone and begins to panic. He's like, oh my God, it was real. And his friends were just letting him rest while they packed the car and they kind of like drive up and kind of like crack some jokes and
yeah, they're like, you can sleep through anything. And he runs and jumps in the car and he's like, oh, did you have breakfast without me? And then they're like, can we stop at a pub on the way? Kind of thing.
It's lighter. The mood, the atmosphere.
I feel like they're gonna make it.
They're gonna make it. And it's kind of like they're not in a terrifying hellscape.
And then I checked the time, like how deep into the movie
Oh,
we were,
don't do that.
and I was like, fuck.
That's a setup for a heartache, because
Because we're like halfway through at this point or something. And I'm just like,
building.
Something, like this is,
We're building.
the worst hasn't even
happened yet. And this peaceful atmosphere sets in. It's like a road trip vibe, right? They're making their way to the military area where the broadcast is telling them to go. There's like beautiful choral music playing in the background. They giggle, they're playing cards, and it's like, we kind of forget we're in a horror movie, right? So they make their way to the large city where the broadcast is telling them to go. It's Manchester.
Yeah, Manchester. And it's completely on fire.
It's on fire. Yeah.
Sorry if I just stole that from you.
No, well, you did, and it's great.
I'm so sorry.
But it also seems like some kind of like 80s punk song. Manchester's on fire! Like there's like some kind of like song.
Yeah, it's like London Calling.
Yeah, exactly. It's really ominous to see something like that.
It's huge.
It's huge. The fire is engulfing.
And it's ongoing. Like,
Yeah.
it's on fire now.
Yeah. And anybody else who's played like a fair amount of zombie video games like myself, the cities is not where you want to be. Like, that is essentially the hive where most of the undead kind of like corral. The rural areas are obviously open and scary, but lesser around. However, like they said at the beginning, this spread happened everywhere in the rural areas anyways. So it's just but
it's
there's
only,
scary.
It's like with the Sleepy Hollow episode. There's only so many people in the town.
Yeah.
Once you kill all 20 of them, then, you know, what?
Yeah, they start roaming elsewhere.
Those zombies gotta go somewhere else.
They hungry.
They
hungry.
It's horrible.
They eventually find the military camp gate, but it's abandoned. And they're like, I know, like, hold on to your butts, folks, because the tide's about to turn. So the military camp is abandoned. They're going through.
Well, it's like a blockade, right?
Yeah, like the gate. There's like set up camps, like first aid tents that are like ransacked. And Frank is clearly upset about this.
So he has been holding it down this whole time. He has been doing the most. He has not broken at all. He has been showing up every single time, like protecting his daughter,
instilling
making
hope.
the calls, doing all this. And I think he really believed that this was going to be the answer, and that it's not. He just like loses it. Like, this is the first time you see him just kind of, it's too much. It's been too much.
Yeah.
But this emotional, just complete, like, it's so overwhelming, and he's just like, I feel like he was kind of like faking it with the hope for Hannah. Yeah. But in not having it himself, and this being ripped away from him in this way.
Totally.
It just sent him over the edge. It's like, what the fuck am I supposed to do? Like, now this isn't the answer. Now I have to fucking keep
going,
being strong.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and that's just like so emotional.
It is. And like you witness him break.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he has this moment of a total emotional breakdown, anger, sadness, fear. It's flying everywhere. And like, he quickly, he storms off to cool down, which is, an admirable thing to do, in the sense of like, I just need to have a little moment to myself, collect myself.
He doesn't want
Hannah to be scared or upset. So he walks behind like some buildings or some camp buildings and sits down, just have like a breath or two, and a crow starts squawking above him while perched like on a dead body that's caught in the barbed wire,
like in the rafters or something, because it's like kind of like almost like a barn or like a shed like that,
or a huge ass fence or something, right?
Yeah.
And so he's still kind of in that mode of like, oh, I'm so mad at this crow's fucking squawking at me. And so he goes over and kicks like the fence or the whatever the thing is holding the crow in the body, and we see this slow motion blood drop. As Frank is staring up at the crow, he blinks and the blood drop lands in his eye.
Yeah.
And we, as the audience, have this like moment, like a full on gasp, holding your breath, sick to your stomach. Oh fuck.
Yeah, and he kind of like stumbles to the side and he's like wiping his eye.
Yeah.
And like Hannah comes around the corner and she's like, Dad?
And he immediately knows what's going on. and he quickly spurts out, "I love you, Hannah. You're going to be okay." And just like really trying to get out his last message to his daughter before he turns. And she's like, "What's going on? What's going on?" And like, this is where, did you cry here?
I'm crying right now.
Yeah, like this is where it happens. But basically you see, how quickly like this is going to turn here.
Yeah, and then Selena and
oh, let's have a moment. Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm okay. And then
Yeah.
Selena and Jim got, and Selena's like, "Jim, you have to fucking kill, like, you have to kill him." Like, and Jim's like, "What the fuck?" Like,
taking the scene
Selena
in.
like grabs Hannah and she's like holding her, and Hannah's like freaking out. It's just really sad.
Sad. It's like, it's a horror movie, but it's also just like, not a jump scare horror. It's not just a jump scare movie. It's, this is your worst nightmare kind of horror movie.
Yeah.
Oh, let's pause.
No, it's okay. Let's go.
Okay.
I don't want to sit in it. Let's
move on. Let's move on. But he's like yelling at her, "Get away, get away." And, Jim kind of takes the scene in, grabs his bat, and is like, "Okay, I guess I gotta do this." And then we hear a gunshot.
Also, fucking Jim is the size of a toothpick, and Frank is a huge man.
He's a burly man.
I truly believe if this gun didn't go off, that Frank would have taken them all out.
For sure. So we see the military. It's like a small group.
30 seconds too late.
Yeah. Right?
This even too, I was just like, motherfucker.
Yeah.
And here are my, I just want to show you my notes. It's me realizing what's going on. So talking about the emotional part with Frank, and then the moment where he turns and passes away, and I'm like, oh my god, no. Fucking no. And I'm like, man, they were right fucking there. Why did they have to take him away like that? Like, and then that's what I texted you too.
Yeah.
And I was like, Frank, no. It was that really like, fucked me up, man.
Because that entire middle of the movie, right? Like we see his love, we see his protection, we see the downfall of his heart breaking when this doesn't work, and then he has to die like that.
And it's like he did it to himself, you know? In the end too, like in a way, like
silly mistake.
Like, and it's like, again, like he has been showing up, he's been perfect, like he's been doing everything right this entire time. Yeah. And he had one moment of weakness, one moment of just of letting his emotions get to him, and he really did it to himself in this way. And totally it's just random. Like so heartbreaking, because exactly the randomness of it almost makes it worse, and not like it just didn't need to happen. Like, why would it happen like that? No. Right? Why wouldn't it be him fighting off a bunch of them to save Anna, or like something like that? Like, it was so meaningless.
Exactly. And that's, I think, the heartbreak for us, right?
Yeah.
As the audience. And I think you alluded to this before either earlier in the podcast or when we kind of met up earlier, but like when the military shows up, it's not a good vibe.
Okay. All of my notes about the army are just how sick I feel. I'm just like, this is right off the bat. You're just like,
good. This is not
so they
good.
come and pick them up. They're like, you're safe now. We've got you. We're going to load them in the truck and whatever. And and they head to their camp, right?
Yeah.
Which is like in a big old like mansion kind
like
of
a Victorian manor. Mm-hmm. Like it's like one of those old school Victorian manors where the grounds around the manor are these like beautiful cut lawns, which the military has like planted the like landmines. There's barbed wire all
you
over
can
it.
see 365.
You can see it. Exactly.
Like, there's
you can
lots
see
of,
around. And you know, the
365. 360. It took me a second.
I didn't catch it, so that's all right. The three of them are in shock, obviously. And the truck or the Humvee like rolls up, and we're introduced to Major Henry West, who is played by Christopher Eccleston, the Doctor. Not the Doctor in this movie, but Doctor Who, the Doctor.
He played Doctor Who?
He played the Doctor in Doctor Who.
I don't know what that means.
For people who get it, they get it.
That's a whole other podcast.
That's a whole other podcast.
Me looking at you like, what? You're expecting you to explain it to me.
I thought you were a Whovian. I was wrong.
No, it's okay.
It's cool. I'll tell you later.
I'm like very specific about things, like, it's too much content for me.
Oh, it's decades.
Yeah, I'm not interested in
even
trying to start.
So the Major introduces himself to the trio. They are all very sad because they're now a trio instead of a foursome. And they
don't say foursome.
Foursome. He tells them to wash up and get comfortable, and dinner will be served soon.
Okay, yeah. And so they go to their like room or whatever.
Yeah.
And I believe it's Jim is looking out the window, and they see so they had been given a ride in the Humvee or whatever, but their vehicle has been brought as well.
Yeah, the cab.
And they can see these army guys like doing donuts, like fucking around in their car.
In Frank's car.
Like doing donuts, fucking around, shouting. And the cook is like, I gotta cook this.
Come on, guys,
whatever.
They're stealing all of their rations.
Taking them all, right? And which is like, I mean, I guess, but it's just very like, they're like little boys playing. Like for them, it's like a fun, like, they get to like kill people and like be like boys playing army and stuff. And it's really sickening. Like it's really sickening. It just feels like they're defiling this thing.
Yes. And I'm so glad you picked up on that energy because I have a whole thing about it later.
It feels so wrong.
Disrespectful, wrong, and you know, Jim's kind of just like reckoning with what happened. Is this safe? Is the army here or the military like helping? Like it just doesn't feel right from the get-go. Like the heebie-jeebies are there. Yeah. And so Jim showers up. We get another Cillian shot of the butt.
Yeah, we get to see his butt a lot in this movie.
I'm not mad. And
we needed this.
We needed this.
We needed this.
And, you know, Jim and Selena are like talking about the reality of losing Frank and now having Hannah.
Hannah's sleeping. She's like stress sleeping, right? Yeah. And they're kind of sitting like by her bedside.
Off to the side. Yeah.
And just quietly hushed talking about,
what are we gonna do?
You know, and all of this.
Oh. Yeah. And Selena's not okay.
No.
She's breaking down. She opened her heart.
Yeah.
And
we
all
opened our fucking hearts, didn't we? We all made that mistake.
We all made that mistake. And it's breaking again.
Yeah.
Jim goes to kiss her. Mm-hmm. And, you know, she's kind of into it, but then like she abruptly leaves in a huff. Like,
it took them longer to kiss than I expected.
Yeah. I think there was another kiss that I missed, to be honest.
No, but it was, I don't know that they did, or if they did, it was like not like that. This was more, this was like
it was intense. And then the intensity broke because Selena's like, no, I can't, and like leaves.
Yeah, of course she can't right now.
Yeah, it's kind of weird on Jim's part.
But okay, we're going to talk about it later too. Jim picking his moments to kiss Selena. I'm like, this is the last time.
This is fucking
the worst possible time for you to be trying to kiss her.
Yes, we'll get back to that part. So Jim is outside chatting with the Major, and they discuss how the large fires that they saw in Manchester earlier had driven out all of the infected. And really pushed them out into the rural area. Kind of like where they are right now, which is great. Really great. Mm-hmm. He talks about rebuilding and restarting society. Sir, it's been 28 days.
My first, like, as they're walking through and they're having this conversation, all I keep thinking is, why is it just army boys? Mm. Why is there no one else there? Mm-hmm. And where are the women? Mm-hmm. Cause it's like, yeah, it's been 4 weeks, but they're like right next to a huge city center. Mm-hmm. Like, it's just like, to me, I'm just like, and I think that's something that our main characters are experiencing too. Is like, they expected this to be like a little community or something.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like 8 dudes.
Yeah. Just circle jerking each other.
Not even.
Oh, well, yeah, we'll talk about that later.
I wish they were.
Because they're giving off the air of, we know what we're doing.
Yeah.
We have a plan. And Jim is sniffing it out right now where this does not feel good.
No.
The Major, like, kind of then guides Jim a little bit through a tour, but he introduces them to what I've tokened them as the pet or the experiment.
Oh.
So it's not a pet. It's their fallen friend that they've chained up. So this soldier was infected 2 days ago. They looped him up in this like metal chain in this like quarantined area in the courtyard of this manor. Mm-hmm. And the Major explains the rationale of we want to watch it. We want to see how long they starve to death, which I guess is like a fair thing.
This is what I was saying is like catching one is actually a good idea, but it's really fucked up that it's one of the army guys that they didn't just like catch one. Mm-hmm. Like they could easily set up a trap out in the grounds and catch one
easily,
but it's one of their guys,
one of their own.
And also the way that the Major is like acting around him, his body language and the way he's speaking and stuff is really icky too. It's just there's it's again that feeling of like defilement. Like there's just this real like
abuse of power.
It's not even like on the face. Like it's this like in the background, this kind of vibe of just like, it's not, yeah.
And he kind of laughs when Jim gets scared.
Yeah.
And it really, like you said, this is building to something we don't trust we're kind of given the facade of trust and like some kind of like system and routine, and we have the cook and we have the this and we have the barricades, and it's like, no, this is wrong. This feels wrong.
Even how the cook like wears the apron and all the other guys call him like by a like a female
demeaning name,
and kind of how they treat. Yeah, it's just like
not good.
Yeah.
So we flash to the dinner scene.
I feel really unsafe.
Okay. That didn't mean to sound like, are you okay?
Oh, yeah. Okay. No, and also I was kind of yawning as I said it, so it sounded more intense, but I'm just saying, like, it's in my notes too, like, during this time. And cause I'd never seen it before too, so I don't know what the fuck's gonna happen, but I'm just like, I am picking up on this hard, and I just don't know, I don't feel safe. Like, I don't.
But isn't that interesting? And I wonder if, like, other people, maybe it's just us, you know, a certain group of people where we're just picking up on signs of just like, these men are not safe. We can see it.
Yeah.
Clear as day. So this dinner scene where all of the soldiers, so there's 9 of the soldiers, including the major, I'm not sure, and then this 3 civilian survivors, our friends, and this dinner scene is so intense because the major goes on to like really continue that demeaning behavior towards the cook. He goes on to preach around like what's normality, and there's like this really cold perspective on the people who've died. He's kind of like liking it, you know, like he's reveling a little bit in this situation.
He fucking loves this, yeah.
And a soldier at the table kind of confronts him about it and challenges him about this, and he is immediately shut down.
This is the only guy who's like
safe.
Okay.
Yep. And we kind of get a glimpse here that there's already a little bit of division happening between the ranks a bit, and the
ones who are like super into it, this like play pretend like idea that they have, and then the other ones that like maybe thought that they were actually going to be helping people.
Exactly. So, as I guess they're like tucking into dinner, we suddenly hear this explosion and alarms are going off, and they're all yelling at each other, "Hut 2, blah, 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 the infected have made their way through the landmines," and everyone starts yelling and rushing around, grabbing their guns and shouting orders, and we see them kind of like fan out to their positions at the perimeter, and it kind of feels like these military dorks are in a video game. Like you said, these little boys with their guns.
Yeah, they're having so much fun.
They're laughing and cackling, and
how that one exploded, I've never seen anything like that.
Yeah.
Whatever.
And I get.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I just keep forgetting that it's been 1 month.
Yeah. How quickly
it devolves.
Some Lord of the Flies shit right here.
Mm-hmm.
And so they met, like the army guys managed to kill off the infected before they breached. And the ultimate military frat boy, the ultimate douche, is high on his violence.
He is horny from killing.
Yeah, he is aggressive, and he starts to like tease and harass Selena, because Selena's like, "What's going on?" Grabs her weapon, her machete.
Okay, I just think that we should just jump in right now, and just say trigger warning. The next little while, is going to be. It's gonna be coming up.
Yeah,
there's gonna be some really uncomfortable dynamics and things happening here.
Yeah.
So if you need to skip ahead, please do so.
Yes, please do what you need to do.
Yeah.
So, like I said, this is kind of like where the tide starts to turn a little bit.
Well, it's more, they're not like hiding it anymore. So he like grabs her machete away from her, right? And they're like teasing her, like, what you're gonna do?
What are you gonna do with this?
Like, grabbing at her.
Little girl, blah, blah, blah. And Jim attempts to kind of like get in the way and stop him, and a fight breaks out.
And these are like well-fed fucking military guys that have been hunkering down together. And Jim has been living off fucking Mars bars and Pepsis.
Yeah.
Only for a couple days, because he was in a coma and didn't eat for
2 days ago.
25 days.
Right?
Yeah. Or whatever. 28 days he didn't eat, and now this is like day 30. Yeah.
And so the major comes in to break up the fight and just pistol whips the frat boy.
Which I was like, oh,
thank God.
I had this moment of like, oh, he does not condone this. Okay.
Yeah, okay. Phew. He clears out the room.
Sends everyone to do their different jobs. Whatever.
And apologizes on behalf of his soldiers, which again, like, gives this false sense of like, oh, okay, there's some sense of safety and control here.
False sense.
The major questions Jim about the number of people he's killed to be alive today, and rationalizing all of the violence it takes to survive. And Jim, like, tells him about the scene, or like how he had to kill a child.
Boy.
Yeah.
And the major's like, but you had to, because he would have killed you. And Jim's kind of like, yeah, but Jim knows that he didn't have to kill that boy.
So Jim's got a conscience.
Right? Because he went and sought it out himself.
Exactly.
That encounter was not going to happen if he didn't go and actively look for it.
No. And the Major begins to explain that he needs the women. And Selena and Hannah are part of a bigger plan to repopulate the planet. And this is 28 days later.
Is it really about repopulating the planet?
It's about power and control. It's about dominating. It's about, honestly, this is a cult. And that's what I wrote down. Like, this is a leader who has this, like, high on himself kind of plan of, like, I'm in charge now.
But the way that he's trying to sell it to Jim isn't that, it feels like an unfortunate byproduct. That's how he's kind of selling it. Is like, listen, we want to protect you. We want to, like, move forward, and we can do this. I caught my guy with a gun in his mouth the other day, and he was going to end it all. What can I offer him to keep him around to help women? That's what I can offer him. We need, these guys need to,
and
in order to, and it's so, again, like you said, 28 days later. Also, how you said they were circle jerking. I wish they fucking were. They obviously aren't.
Yeah.
They should be. And then maybe they'd fucking chill out a little bit.
Maybe they just relax just a little bit.
Oh my god. It has not been that long.
It has not
Fucking
been that long.
Masturbate.
Get it over with. God.
It's so disgusting. And he's really just like, expecting Jim to be okay with it, which I also think is just speaking to a larger societal issue
buddy.
about like that kind of boy culture and how it's expected that it's more likely that he'll be okay with it than he won't be kind of thing. Or like he's the outlier because he's not okay with it. And it's just like, it's really touching on something.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
This is obviously a little microcosm, but this is like touching on something like very fucking real.
Real horror, if you will.
Real horror. And he's literally like saying to Jim, like, just calm down. Let my men fucking
do what they're gonna do.
And then everything will be fine.
Yeah.
And like, what price to pay is that? It's not a price for you.
Yeah.
You don't have to pay that.
I'm assuming you're on board with this. And Jim is obviously not okay, like you said, and goes to like immediately alert the women. He's got to get out. Like we got to get out. They didn't even grab anything.
No.
And Selena's like, what's going on? Let me grab. And he's like, now. We got to go now.
Yeah.
And Jim immediately gets knocked out by a soldier. And he comes to in the middle of this like standoff between the soldiers. And guns are pointed at them. The soldier that challenged the Major at the dinner table has a gun pointed at the soldiers. He's like the only rational person out of all of them.
Yeah.
And they manage to like subdue him, and the Major orders the soldiers to kill Jim and the traitor. So Jim is locked in a dungeon type room, like to a radiator, and the man who challenged the Major is also there with him, and he's kind of like rambling a little bit. He's going on about how the virus hasn't made it out to North America.
Okay, and
we're being quarantined.
At first I thought there was a third guy down there. Because it sounded like a crazy rambling at first. I'm like, who else is in there with him? And then you realize that it's like this guy. But is he going crazy?
I think he's just broken in the sense of like, he realizes how far this group has gotten and how insane all of this is, and how he's tried, what I'm assuming, to kind of like stop it from the inside, but realizing now that it got too far and now he's in danger. He's like kind of reckoning with this idea, like this can't, he's gone, the Major's gone insane. This is not the reality of what's happening. And you see how like the soldiers were taking them out into the woods to be executed in the back, and the doofus soldier, I guess,
first I just want to talk about his rambling a little bit more.
Sure.
So basically what he's saying that think about it for a second. Our broadcast shut off as soon as they said that it spread outside of England. How do we even know that it spread that far? How would it jump across the water? And he's saying, what would you do with an angry little island that's like tearing itself apart? You'd quarantine it.
Yeah.
You'd cut it off. And he's like, there are people out there in the rest of the world eating dinner, like going on dates, like doing all this stuff like normal. It's not on the whole world, like
the Major says.
This is kind of, and you're kind of like, it's fed to you in a way where it's like, oh, this is crazy ramblings, But then you're also kind of like,
wait a minute.
That's interesting. And he also mentions that, I don't know if he said that he saw or something, or he heard planes.
Mm-hmm.
He said that. I've seen, like, either, I can't remember if he said he had seen a plane, or he had heard someone say, like, something like that. Yeah. Like, how, if it's like this everywhere else in the world, how is there a plane flying by?
And I think this is the note that I was going to dive into earlier that we're saving for now, is the sense of, like, realistically, if you change within 10 to 20 seconds, and you're up in the air 10 to 20 seconds, there's no way you're landing and people are just walking around. It's not that kind of virus. Mm-hmm. I don't think it made it off the island, right? Because how could it? Unless the infected are swimming, which I doubt. I
don't think they know how to do.
Right?
Yeah.
So us as the audience are slowly, like you said, dawning into the reality of, yes, we've been kind of fed this information up into the point where we're with Jim. We're just slowly finding out what's going on, bits and pieces of information. We have to assume the worst. And then the reality sinks in. This is not as big. It's been only 28 days. It's most likely being quarantined. There's no way this virus has gotten off the island.
Mm-hmm.
Ugh. And so back to this piece of this, like, only logical person on their side is being walked out into the backwoods to being executed.
Cool.
Great. And the one, what I would consider trigger happy, but also kind of bumbling soldier doofus style, ends up killing the traitor, first, and the douchey soldier's like, what the fuck did you do that for? We had, like, a plan. And as they argue, Jim bolts.
Yeah. So they took them out to this, like, body pile.
Yeah.
Which I guess is where they throw the...
There were a lot of people without uniforms. Did you see that?
Yes, I did.
Oh.
That's what I was like... Because when you see... And so you never get to know, like, are these just people that have gotten the virus?
Mm-hmm.
Or is there even something more going on? We don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that was something I was like, oh. So he bolts. They're like, what the fuck? Where'd he go? Like, they run to chase after him.
Mm-hmm. Jim's bolting, and he makes his way.
No, he didn't bolt, though. He tricked them.
Oh,
he fucking
hid.
laid down in the body.
Yes. He
so
laid down.
As they were distracted, he just laid down in the body pile.
Yes.
They turn back. They're like, what the fuck? Where'd he go? They start to, like, run after him. He gets up, runs the other way.
So smart.
Fucking
brilliant.
So
brilliant.
Smart.
Yeah. Clearly smarter than these idiots. And as he's running away, he makes it over the wall. It
loses his shirt. I was like,
shirt.
So he hops this, like, barbed wire, like, fence or whatever, and it just shows him, like, kind of going up and then it dropping down on the other side, and he has no shirt. I'm like, what the fuck? And then you instantly see that he lost it on the barbed wire.
And evidence, I guess, for the soldiers to see, oh, he made it over the wall. Let's dismiss him. He'll die anyways.
They're not going to chase him.
No.
Because the woods are crawling with, what do they call them?
They call those guys? I can't remember the nickname they have for them.
I keep wanting to say Unsullied.
Oh.
Which is not. But what do they call them?
I cannot recall.
All right, whatever. The infected.
And as Jim is, like, making his way, still hands bound, he falls and trips. And, like, as he's, like, lying, kind of catching his breath, he's staring up at the tree canopy and he sees a plane.
Mm-hmm.
And the ramblings of the guy in the dungeon starting to sink in, him seeing the plane, pieces are coming together. He's going back to save them because he knows if they get out of here.
He was never running away.
No,
he was always going to go back.
Away.
Yeah.
But he's going back with a new sense of hope and mission, because it's not just to get them out of this hellscape with these army dudes. It's like, we're going to get out and we're also going to get out. We're going to survive. Yeah. We're surviving this. And he's going back, but, you know, Jim, there's a switch that's flipped in Jim at this point. It's not like he goes, like, dead in the eyes.
No.
But he goes into, like, full on sneaky berserker kill at any cost mode.
And I mean, he hasn't really killed up to this point,
except for, like, that one kind of test out period.
So he's like, this is it, right?
Yeah. So we are going to flash back to the manor. And again, this is, elements of the trigger warning are here. The women are being prepared for their forced repopulation. And the major is, like, going on about how dress them pretty, get them in the dresses that we find upstairs, right? And so they're being held at gunpoint to get changed. And in the horrors of what's happening, Selena really kind of clicks into clever mode of like getting out of this to get some kind of space from these guys, and she tricks them into leaving the room and asks them to like leave, like we're down for this, but like leave, we need to like have some room for privacy. And when they manage to leave, Selena rushes to feed Hannah as much Valium she can to like get her high enough to not care.
And Hannah asks her, are you trying to kill me? And she said, no, I'm just making it so you don't care, which is like horrible.
Is for Selena, like really quick thinking there. Doesn't think of herself, just feeds Hannah as much as she can.
Honestly, I hate to say this, Selena can fucking handle this.
You know what I mean? She needs to be like sober-minded to get out, right?
Yeah. I feel like it's now, especially now that Frank's gone, she's like, her devotion is to protecting Hannah at all costs now. And she is now going to do anything in her power to protect this girl.
Yeah.
Even more than before, it was all about protecting herself.
Yeah.
She's like switched into this other role and is like, she is ready to do whatever it takes to make sure this girl is safe, like is protected.
Like goosebumps.
Yeah.
A soldier busts in though, before I think anything can go further, but I think obviously Hannah does get a couple pills in. And before he can retaliate on them any further, we hear a loud alarm blasting through the air in the distance. And Selena goes, "It's Jim." And we kind of like see Jim at the blockade, like doing this hand crank of an alarm. It's like, and he's like luring the soldiers out, right? Yeah. And it's pouring rain of all times. It's like, okay, now it rains. And Jim is in like full berserker, like stealth mode. We are at the blockade gates, basically leading up to the manor. And the major and one of the other soldiers had come down to investigate, guns loaded, ready to shoot on sight. And Jim is stalking the shit out of them. And the way that this scene is filmed, it looks like he's an infected. The way he's moving, like quick and like moving around, and he definitely goes a little wild later.
This is like all coming to a head and kind of the climax, and this is I think one of the larger, like, I don't know if you would call it a message of this movie, but how you stop being able to really tell the difference, what it takes to survive, as you had mentioned before, and then being infected. Like, the line becomes so blurred. Who is more brutal?
Who's the monster?
What where the rage comes from, and also what that guy was saying too about how he even said there was never an infection.
No.
Like, he was kind of saying like,
we're the infected, like
humans, kind of in a kind of way.
Yeah.
So I just think that it's so, like, how they really brought the movie to this point. And all the lines are just completely blurred. And now there are no infected involved. And we're just killing each other.
Yeah. It's human,
right?
It's PvP. Human,
our
person
eyes are
versus
both
person.
So wide.
So
we're
wide.
just like,
so we're kind of like at this like rain pouring down. Jim is like stealthily ducking between shadows and like underneath trucks and around trucks, and he manages to like knock one of them out and kill them, and just leaving the major. And Jim places the now dead soldier in the Jeep to kind of like act as a decoy, but Jim also cuts the wires in the Jeep so the major can't drive back. And the zombies are also like mass running now at them because it's a giant alarm has gone off, right?
They're out and about.
They're out and about, and they're being drawn in. And so the major has to like fight his way back basically to the manor.
I just want to say one more thing about Jim here too, is that like before, I think he's also kind of awakened to like what his own strengths are.
Yeah.
Because he is rail thin. He's not super strong. He's tried to like attack a few times and he's been knocked down. He isn't really a physical match for these guys. So he's like really like, okay, how am I going to adapt this to myself? Yeah. So I feel like now he's like completely like quote unquote fighting like in a different style.
Yeah.
Than he was trying to before.
Right. And he's clever.
Yeah.
He's using his wits. He's using, like I said, the decoy. He's outsmarting these buffoons, right? Like, clearly. Flashback to the manor. And Jim is like sneaking back onto the grounds. And it's pouring rain, the darkness of night. We see him, you know, he's got like a weapon, a gun now. And he walks up to the cage. Rather, not a cage. He walks up to the corral.
It feels like it's like a kitchen garden, to be honest, right?
Like a little courtyard.
It's like a courtyard that is surrounded by four walls. Like it's interior in the building.
Yeah.
And it's off of like a larder.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
So to me, it feels like it would have been like a kitchen garden area or something like that.
Totally. But he goes up to the place where the fallen soldier, the infected soldier, is chained up. And we hear a single shot. And we think he's going to shoot the infected, but no, he shoots the chain. And so again, like Dakota said, we see Jim thinking about how to get out of here rather than the way that he might have thought to like bully his way through. Mm-hmm. And then the intensity of these next few scenes are so intense. So the soldier immediately takes out two of the douchebags immediately.
So Selena and Hannah are like being watched, right?
Yeah.
And they hear something,
mm-hmm.
and one of them's like scared, right?
Yeah, what was that?
And Hannah's like, they've been gone a long time.
Oh, she's high as fuck, so she's just saying what's on her mind.
They're dead. Like, they're not gonna come back.
They're not coming back.
Like, all that, and I'm like, first of all, fuck yeah, Hannah. Scare the shit out of them.
Yeah.
But also, then one of them says, I'll go let the floods and take the butchers.
Oh, is that what you were Googling?
Yeah, and I was like, what the fuck does that mean? So I'm not sure let the floods, I think maybe that's go pee. But take the butchers is a Cockney slang. It's like Cockney rhyming slang.
Yeah.
And it's referring to butcher's hook. And that is to take a look.
Oh.
So taking the butchers is to go and have a look.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for Googling that.
I never would have
Didn't catch that.
Never
little inside joke for the UK folks.
So he's like, regardless of if he's peeing or not, I'm not sure. He's saying, okay, well, I'll go take a look. I'll go look.
So the two soldiers, yes, they kind of split apart. Hannah's messing with them. The guy that's left. Yes, it's awesome. So good. And Selena's like, stop it, Hannah, you're gonna make it worse. But then we have this shot of the zombie guy break through and just destroy these military assholes. And Jim is like watching this all go down from like the roof because he's like trying to find a way to like get the girls out but not put anybody else in danger.
Like he's creating chaos, right?
Yes, very clever. And he's like in full god tier mode, like hopping over roofs and balconies. Like he's like wiry, right?
Yeah, climbing through these little windows
and he's like
crawling around in rafters. Yeah.
And the one soldier manages to like hide under it in the kitchen sink and he's like, the coast is clear. And he like runs out and boom, Jim like stabs him.
Yeah.
Act of violence, like human on human.
And the eye contact though.
Oh, the eye. And he's like, and he like falls down.
And Jim's just like, just silent and just like,
lets him
staring at him, right?
Well, I wrote, it's absolute chaos in this house and Jim is like dead-eyed. Like he is in full survival mode. Something has been unlocked in him where he's like, I will do what needs to get done because I know that there's light on the other side of this.
Yeah, it's different now.
Yeah, there's hope. Yeah. And so the major finally makes his way back from the gate and he's investigating the bloody scene that's like unfolding in real time. And so the women have been like taken by gunpoint by another soldier and Hannah just like runs away high as a kite. She's like probably not fully aware of what's going on because she's so high, but she tries to make it back to the bathroom where her clothes were before they changed to get a picture, the family picture of her dad, Frank, and her mom. She hears like an infected coming, and so she scurries behind this like long, tall mirror, and she's like hiding up on top of the mirror, and that scene of the infected like coming up and like sniffing at her where he's on one side of the mirror.
He's like looking at himself in the mirror, checking
it out.
What
is this? And she's like holding on for dear life.
And she's struggling.
Yeah, because so scary. But we cut back to Jim. He's on the roof again. He's jumping. He's running. And he's trying to find the women without like getting inside. And so we see Selena being held at gunpoint by the ultimate. Like this is the best showdown because it's the douche guy that's holding her and who's been harassing her and violence towards her.
Yeah, and he's the one who was like the most excited to kill the zombies, the most excited
to like essay her. It was awful. And so Jim jumps through the attic somehow and he's like in the rafters And he like jumps down silently, again, to his strengths, comes up behind him and like jacks this guy up. He like violently murders this guy with his bare hands.
Oh, and they did not skimp here. You get to see
full
it
on,
all.
full on. And Selena is terrified. She grabs her machete and is about to cut up Jim because she thinks he's so aggressive and scary because he's infected.
Never seen him like that. Right?
And he like says something to her and she goes, "Oh, thank God." And they like embrace and they have a ridiculously timed inappropriate kiss. The hormones were flying.
He also mentions how she hesitated.
You pause.
Which is really sweet.
Yeah. Just a little light humor. Yeah. I'm still here, Selena. I'm gonna kill to protect us, but I'm here. Jim's here. And he mentions the plane. And so they're macking. And like Hannah out of nowhere comes and like smashes Jim on the head with like a vase.
Bottled him. And Hannah bottling Jim was everything that I needed in that moment. I was just like, all right, the gang's back together.
The gang is back together. Hannah comes in hot. She thought he was biting her, but they were just macking. And they eventually like collect themselves and they realize like let's get out of here. And so Hannah they make it out and Hannah hops into the front of the cab. And they open the back seat of the cab and the major's back there. He's got a gun pointed out and he says something quippy and he shoots Jim in the stomach.
Yeah.
Hannah, without hesitation, reverses back. The car, like races backwards and with the major in the back, she reverses into the front of the manor where the door is wide open and infected busts through the back of the cab, pulls the major out, just rips him apart, destroys him. She floors it. Picks up Jim, picks up Selena, and they start like speeding out of there. This
is another like through line with Hannah and Frank.
The car.
Because when they stopped for gas, Frank let Hannah like drive it a little bit and she almost crashed it.
On purpose though.
On purpose.
Yeah.
And then Frank driving when they went through the tunnel.
Yeah, a little wild.
And so this is just like, I feel like there's just that's just another little, I don't know.
I feel like it's honoring Frank a little bit in his like wild driving ways. And Hannah's like father like daughter busts it out of there and it's really sweet. But then they're racing out of there. The gates out are totally barricaded and locked. And they're like, just drive through it. And so they buckle everybody's seatbelts. They make impact and there's a fucking freeze frame.
I thought the movie was over.
I think everybody did.
I was like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, this was such a great movie. How are you going to end it like that? Yeah.
Oh, psych.
Yeah, oh my God.
We think the movie's over, but we flash to a series of scenes of Selena, like, getting Jim to a hospital, like, don't die on me, like, the CPR, the needles, basically, the camera goes black. And, my God, my heart is simultaneously in my throat, in my butt, in my stomach all at once.
Around the corner at the
neighbors. And you're just like, what is happening? Because like, how could you end it this way? Yeah. But then we get another stark flash to a very bright cottage room.
But it says 28 days later again.
Did I miss that?
Yeah.
Another 28 days.
It flashes 28 days later. And I was like, is this 28 more days later?
I think so.
Yeah, it must be, right?
Yeah. Yeah. See, again, I'm like furiously typing, not looking at the screen. And so we're in rural England, and we're just like starkly in a totally different atmosphere than the minutes we just endured like a little while ago. And we see Jim waking up in a bed and he's just like, appears to be kind of like mumbling about, oh, not the curtains too. And we see Selena in the other room and she's in the zone. She's like furiously hand cranking the sewing machine and these massive like, pieces of fabric together. And Hannah is like running in, yelling, it's here, it's on its way. And in a series of scenes, we see Selena, Jim, and Hannah running through a field with these large, massive, hand-sewn giant letters that spell hello. And they've laid them out on the ground, and we see a fighter jet zoom over top of them, and they are bouncing up and down. They are giddy with, like, we're saved. And the joke, do you think they saw us? Because I think they've been trying for a while.
And so this is like in a kind of a pasture, this like quaint little farmhouse.
Yeah.
And there's like a bit of a mountain behind it. And the way this fighter jet fucking like is flying and then just dekes right around the mountain, I thought they distracted the pilot and the plane was gonna crash.
God, could you imagine?
Like, I was just like, oh shit.
No.
And then it just like went around and it was like,
and I was like, oh God, please, dear God, don't do this to me. And we're at the end. Like, the elation, and I like, this is what this movie needed. We needed this happy fucking ending.
They're family now.
They are family. And, like, I just want to give a moment. They were saved. Mm-hmm. It felt good. Some final thoughts throughout this whole movie as I'm typing it out furiously. I've seen this movie dozens of times, and every time I'm like, he's like, hello, at the most, fodder, what are you doing? And I never, at the end I'm like, why did they spell out hello? Why not like SOS or help? But again, it's just an homage, I think, to every time that Jim was just like, hello. The quality that this movie is. Yeah. What did you think?
I mean, it was really, really good. It was incredible. Yeah. It was intense.
Yes.
It was emotional. It was less like jump scary gory than I thought it was going to be. I mean, it was gory, but, I think I was expecting it to be a little less, like thoughtful.
Emotional.
Yeah. Right? I really, really cared about our characters. Mm-hmm. It touched on a lot of really heavy themes and important themes and like conversations and stuff. Mm-hmm. There were some elements I didn't love about with the essay and stuff and like Jim being like the savior and
agreed.
I don't think we need to really talk about it on the pod, but there's an element of like, don't try to kiss a woman that's just been like handled that way.
Yeah.
Like, come on. You know what I mean? But I don't know. I loved it. I really, really loved it. I will absolutely watch it again. Mm-hmm. I really want to show Prob. I think he would love it.
Is he into horror?
Oh yeah, we both are.
Nice.
Like the last movie I went to in theaters was The Nun 2. You know.
Like, getting scared is so good. And what I notice about some horror, I'll watch every horror movie that comes out, but a horror movie with a good storyline is just so much better.
I love the trash too, but
100%.
The ones that we've talked about some of our favorites before, and we do have really similar taste in horror.
Totally.
Yeah. I'm really glad that I hadn't seen it before too, because as we kind of walked through it and talked about it, my perspective was very different than yours in a lot of scenes, because you'd been seeing it since before you probably were old enough to understand a lot of themes and stuff. And so you've just you've put it in your own brain that this is exactly what is happening.
And I can't unsee that.
Where there are certain scenes that were maybe up to a little more up to interpretation than that. So I thought that was really cool, actually, that like I hadn't seen it before. So me seeing it and like bringing this other point of view to stuff that was maybe already solid in your mind was very cool.
Yeah, that whole gas station scene totally blew my mind. I'm like, totally.
Yeah.
And it's hard to unsee things that you've been watching and making your mind up since 13, right?
Of course.
Love it.
Yeah.
Who's your favorite character?
Frank. Obviously.
I
love Frank.
Yeah.
But you know how I feel about like a good dad.
I know.
A proud dad, a good dad, like I just like nothing gets me more than that.
Yeah. The tears, they flow.
Yeah, that was really difficult. That was a difficult loss for sure. But as I've said before, like I'm a crier. Like I'll get over it.
Yeah.
I cry a lot, but
that hit, right?
Yeah.
It's deep.
As we mentioned too when we were at that point in the movie, it was the pointlessness of it.
Ugh. It's like the random.
It was just,
why did he have to kick it? But of course, he was angry. He needed to kick it.
He's been holding back for so long. Long. I can't even, I don't want to do it.
We're not going to get it. Don't cry again.
How about you? Your favorite character?
Frank, for sure.
Yeah. Stole the show too. What's that actor's name again?
Gleason. Something Gleason.
Yeah. I think that maybe if I just imagine him with the Mad Eye Moody eye on,
Brendan Gleeson,
then it wouldn't have hurt as much. Actually, if he would have had the Mad Eye on, he wouldn't have got infected because that thing's fake.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, how shall we rate this? I have a couple ideas.
Okay, yeah, hit me with ideas.
So, how many Valiums do we need to watch this to do it again? How many Rage Monkeys? How many times your heart was in your butt? How many pairs of Cillian blue eyes?
Oh, I like the heart in the butt.
Yeah. How many hearts are in your butt? Or how many times your heart was in your butt? But like, carry the 3.
All right.
Divide your age by.
I'm trying to count, and I can only count to 1.
That's usually me on my fingers.
I'm just gonna go with my heart and say 13.
13-4.
Yep. Yeah.
I will definitely mirror that. All of the hearts are in my butt. Your heart, my butt.
Your heart, my butt.
You, the listener.
It's in my butt. It's in my throat.
Yeah.
It's,
in my...
Gone to get a cup of coffee. Came back again.
Be back later.
It was so much. But I think 13.
Yeah.
Yeah. More than 10.
However much my butt can handle, that times 10.
Yeah.
It was so... one of my favorite movies, but up there for one of my favorite horrors.
It can't be said enough. That was a really fantastic movie. Like,
nice.
Really, and the time period and like how, like we'd said, it really feels like it was a prototype. It's a blueprint, right? Like it's like really, it feels, watching it even now, it feels really important. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was really good.
I'm glad you liked it. Shall we pick yours?
Yeah.
Yee! Where are they?
Behind you. I think they're in the corner again.
In my butt with my heart.
Can you reach from there? You are long. Father, are you okay?
Okay. These are neatly folded. These are yours.
I still have quite a few left in
you
here.
do. Oh my god, the excitement. She's getting in there. She's tickling them.
I gotta tickle.
Oh, here we go. Ooh, the amount of gasps in this section of the podcast.
I'm really excited about this.
Show me.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to find out what we are just about to... Another adventure.
Yeah, another adventure starting next week.
Tune in to the next episode. You can find us on Instagram at New Friend Cinema.
My best friend.
I was literally about to say something else. Or at Gmail. Fuck. You say it.
If you're looking to get in touch with us, you can email us at newfriendcinema@gmail.ca. You can find us on Instagram at newfriendcinema. Please take time out of your day to like, subscribe, leave a review, anything like that. Anything a little extra you want to do to tell us you love us.
Love our way.
It really helps us.
Yeah.
It was your first time, so it's okay.
Yeah, I'll practice. I don't have social media, so I'm just like totally forgetting
Honestly,
how to talk about it.
We barely do too.
Okay, so bye.
Yeah. Okay.
Stay safe out there.
Hey, stay safe out there.
And hold on to your butts.
Oh, okay. Bye.
Set a little lamp. Yes. Better?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I regretted it immediately. Please don't put that in.
I literally sprayed my water. Okay. Hopefully I'm gonna come in clutch with the romantic comedy for next week.
Because the mood is grim.
No,
but
we're
it's
laughing.
Okay.
It's good.
Fine.
Yeah, this is a fucking great story.
Yes.
You know, not all most great stories aren't happy, so.
No, they're not. Last week?
Oh yeah, I'm like, yeah.
Okay.